Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Wednesday, which means it's time for a new viewer track review video. If you would like to have one of your songs featured in one of these videos, all you gotta do is head on over to the Discord channel, have on up into the submissions channel, what is also a rules channel, and also mods that are around to help you to make sure that your submission is formatted properly so that I actually count it for when it comes time to randomly select them to be played in this thing here. Anywho, let's move forward with the 7 tracks that we have picked for today. First up, we have Departure by Hyperbeam. It is named properly. It's actually in the thing, but oh no, I hit the button and that was fine. Okay. So let's see what this track is about. Okay, that was Departure. Oh, yeah, get it. It's a train. So the only real thing I have as a negative in this track is disparity of power between the kick and the snare and everything else. Well, it's snares, mostly kicks. And by everything else, I mean, like, these sections that happened were a lot of fun. So, as a feeling, it's interesting because there's a kind of mixing I like to refer as commercial mixing, which you might think as being like, okay, that like pro sound, like the Beatport Tab 100 stuff, right? No. I mean, like, mixing literally for commercials, the kind of music and the presence that you hear on like a television or in a movie theater or in a movie. Like, or in a video game. Have you ever thought it was weird? I don't know if you guys, depending on how old you were when you're listening, but when I heard dubstep coming up, it was underground and niche. Like most loud and cool genres tend to start underground, and they work their way up. And then there's a certain point where they start to end up in popular media. Well, when that happens, though, they get mitigated. They don't get shown full force as their thing unless the point is like, oh, hell, my God, Skrillex was in the movie. Like that, they didn't just play the track. But when you hear the commercial versions of it, what you end up hearing is like almost like a magic trick where like they want to have the presence of these tracks, but they don't want to have the incredibly overpowering, like overdone power that will absolutely destroy any mix, anything that they do. And in a way, that's not great. So you end up getting these sort of light, almost versions of it. And so I refer to that type of mixing as commercial mixing. It's not like a not mix. It's a hard thing to do because you want to be able to have the idea of that power without having the literal weight behind it, because that's too much of a headroom cost. So you end up getting what these drums feel like. These drums have that commercial mixed flavor to them, where they have the texture like beautifully, but they're not weighted the way that they need the modern feel sort of requires. And the modern feel is that it's like, you know, the loudest thing and it's kicking everything's ass and it blows it all the way, and the side chaining, oh my God, it's super hard. But everything else in this track is mixed that way. Everything else actually is loud and present and smooshed together in a way that the modern song structure sort of expects. The actual elements are actually that loud. But the drums aren't. And that's where the choices start to rub me the wrong way. Where that there is that power in the song, but it's not the kick and the snare. It's an interesting choice because it doesn't really net you the presence of those commercial type mixes, because you still have that loudness and power. It's just not in the kick or the drums or the snare. But now you also have the modern presence without the power of the kick and the snare. It's a weird position to be in. Everything else about this song is gold, though. I love the texture. I love like the fading in of all this stuff. Normally, this would be where you hear me start to talk about like, it's too long. And I actually have to catch myself and ask, too long for what? It's almost always a consideration for how a listener is listening to a song. The consideration is usually that it's among a playlist or a mix or it's on a radio. And then, therefore, you want your music to be friendly for those mediums so that you are more likely to be listened to. Like, those are all considerations you make along with, like, image type-based things where you want yourself to be accessible. And this is also a mechanical reality as much as it is a musical one. And that mechanical reality is that, like, you're easy to mix into DJ sets. You're loud enough to pair well with other stuff. Like, you're not work to listen to. That's what makes certain kinds of popular. But on the other hand, if we are actually doing the work, if that's the plan, then what's the bother? And right now, what we're doing right now is the work. Right now, we're doing it on purpose. We're going, give me what you have. I'm listening to all of it on purpose. There's no mixing. There's no any of that. So if I have to make all those hypothetical questions, and sure, there's different weights and tests and whatever to make about it, but actually in terms of me doing it right now, listening to this stuff, none of those things were ever really problems. Like, sometimes I would be bored by something, but that's mostly just about repetition, and that wasn't really true about anything in this song. I'll see if that happens for any tracks today, and perhaps we'll have an example of further discussion for this. Moving on to the next track, though. Good job on Departure, Hyperbeam. We have School of Space Fish by Microburst. Wow, and a big ol', I don't know what's going on at the end there. Hey, ask and ye shall receive. Perhaps we'll have our moment to discuss more repetition. Okay, let's have a look. I'm just going to assume that this section was not intentional. Okay, that was super cool. Holy crap. I love the drops. That was really neat. And it was so low. That's so low tuned. Look how much lower than the kick, like, the sub is. Like, it just is so beneath it and envelops it. It's hilarious. It's amazing. It's not a bad thing. Like, normally you don't see that. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see that, is because it makes the mix down there difficult. I will say I have some stuff to say about the choices that were made, mostly in the set, like what's happening when not in the drop. But the drop is beautiful. Everything about it is great, so much so that I just don't care about what's happening outside of it. But I do wonder, like the coming down a step or two. That's an interesting choice, and it doesn't, like, normally when there's a disparity between what's happening not in the drop and in the drop, which feels like there is in this song. Like when the intro's up into it and then it happens, it really kind of feels like we stumbled into something else. If that was intentional, good job. But normally the issue is like a mixed one where it's like, cool, I have all the stuff in the music and here it is and it's related and it's nice, but then the power is wrong. The power was right. The power was right in this track. It's interesting that it appears as though the choice was to do that, to be disparate, to be that disparate. I'm assuming a lot because I would not have chosen to do lots of these things, but I'm not necessarily classifying that to be a bad thing. Like that is honestly me being like, about some of this stuff. The sound design was dope. The hits were dope. The rhythm on it was perfect. And the cuts and everything was just so solid and choice and good and low. Like, it's really hard to do this. It's really hard to have this amount of power and clarity being this low and having that much activity that far down. Like, that's what impresses me the most about this is like just that is so very solid and like engaging and interesting for as long as it is. There's enough stuff happening, but it's still mostly the same material. But it's played with enough that it was fun. So cool beans, this track. School of Space Fish, and Microburst. Next up we have Azathoth, Influx by Influx. Here's this. Wow, that's bright. Wow, that's super bright. I can barely even see the kick from that. It's pretty low too. Woo. That's what it's like when you try to look at stars, like when you're an astronomer and you can't see the center of the galaxy because it's so bright that how bright it is obscures what's happening in it. That's how loud the low end is on this track already, I can tell. But we're gonna have fun listening to it right now. Right now. Oops. Oops. Well, wasn't a lot to be bored of in that track either, huh? Wow. Yeah, that was about as what I thought that sounded like, but damn. Yeah, though. This was good. I like some of the stuff that's happening in here, and it was I've been messing around making chaos and noise with hardware, and I'm making a lot of high frequency pitchy nonsense, and so I'm looking at this sort of thing, and I actually kind of like I've been enjoying hearing the these on things. So this was fun. I like this a lot, and I was just thinking I can't wait until like 50 years from now, this sort of stuff is the kind of retro that synthwave is now, to enable it to be the sort of popular that synthwave is now. So that we end up seeing this stuff like done full force in like a Terminator movie. That would be something. All right, good job, Influx, with Azathoth. Coming up next, we have Virus from Palmer. Yeah. Another very loud, but more evenly Britain track. Bright, Britain. Is that why Britain is called that? Is that seriously the root of Britain? Bright? That would actually make a lot of sense, you know, language-wise. Okay, here we go. was perfect. Everything about that was just as solid as could possibly be. Of this sounds like this could be a Vision release. Like, you should go send this to Noisy Radio immediately. Holy shit. Every single thing about this fits so perfectly. Like, especially I'm digging the sub action on this track, because it's definitely like a separated and like choice experience, which is normally the case for a track like this. Even before we got like learned about modern super loud productions and being so surgical about things, drum and bass producers were separating the sub instrument for a while, but it was actually treated that way, as a separate instrument. It wasn't a reinforced piece of another instrument. It was a thing that was its own deal, and then the actual track had like a top thing that was that note, but was not moving with it. And there made it possible that the sub was its own kind of motion thing, but like even doing that still makes it difficult to mix. Like, the sameness of it makes all that experience easy. Same thing with metal bands and why they do it like that. Bass tends to follow the guitar, because to not do that makes it uncohesive. It doesn't sound powerful, as when everyone's all playing the same note, moving around, and the kicks hit with the same notes. It just really feels on. And it makes everyone sound way more powerful than they are. And like, this track manages to do that. It manages to have this reinforcement and the wub and width stuff, and it also manages to just to move around and stuff, and you can see it do it. And it's just so cool. This track is really cool. And all right, so did it get a little boring, though, for that discussion about whether or not a thing was? And, like, even for the fact that this genre is known for being mostly groove-based, like, a thing like this, if you were to focus on it as close as we did just now, again, accounting for, the, are we doing the work? Yeah, this did not have the depth. But you're not really supposed to do that for this stuff. This is definitely like, put it in a mix, like play some games, read a book or whatever, like go have with this. And this is perfect. I keep using that word because the textures, it's like assignment. It's not like the most revolutionary thing in the universe, but like as a study, like classical music has these things they call etudes. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's how it's spelled. And in jazz, they have these things called standards, and what they are is like, sure, once upon a time someone made this like miraculously innovative like method of arranging notes and playing a thing and with instruments in a way that sounded so perfect and amazing that now it's like it's required reading. It's the core experience of what that kind of thing is, to the degree that like if you're a player or a writer or studying that stuff, it's now what was this innovative, amazing thing is a matter of course bare minimum requirement of your existence. And I guess we're getting to the point where the noisiest stuff that was like known for being the impossible uniqueness that it was, and I mean the general drum and bass era of the time, like it wasn't just noisy doing these things obviously, but like it's now that's just what this is now. Like it's actually like you're like player level like performative experience that you're made to create this, because it's like nothing really real about this. Like the sound design was cool and it was like forward and unique. There was texture and presence to it that was identifiably something that could exist in this track and only exist in this track. But as far as a range of stuff, I've been listening to this stuff for literally decades. It's just that to have it laid out like this so well is to say something about like how hard it is to do it. Which crap, I guess it means it's getting easier. Huh. Well, cool. More of this, please. Honestly, if you were to just make albums of this stuff, you probably have a set career for quite a while. All right, moving on, we have A440, Crown of Stars. That is an interesting looking stuff. Okay. Wow. Whoa. I like looking at spectrums before I hear them to see if I can guess what they sound like. And I'm not always right. I'm actually more often wrong than I am right. Like, we can kind of, like, you see these repetitive patterns, you can sort of guess something like reverb, echo, it's going to happen. And, like, pitch change and phase nonsense. But, like, still, though, whoa, here we go. Here comes this. That was an extended epic outro. Okay. This was this was actually very cool. It definitely had me in the first half, and then it doped me up with that epic B part. That was just like this about that. So you were just getting done talking about when an individual's or a group's style becomes a collective genre, becomes the basis for a regular expression, and then we get this kind of chiptuning experience, right? So here's an example of when a style and a tone of a sound gets used and done and understood so much that it can get co-opted and put into other styles. And we get around here and I'm thinking, okay, this is good. It hits hard. I have pretty good bass presence. Like, the mix is nice. It's very top heavy. It's a bit loud. Holy crap. And that's, nice mixture of the elements. The music is good. And like, it's neat. It's cool. And I think I got this track. And then all of a sudden, so now this is interesting, because the style that we have accomplished here with the high melodic, loud, bright, like not hippie, but like that focus of style, and then this stuff, which is usually in the darker, grungier, newer, maybe dubbier step, and the marriage of it in this is so good, and because of just all the right choices are being made when you're making a call to mix genres. You have to make choices about what and what not to keep, because things like the way that this texture sounds and feels is largely because of how bright it is. Like, so that focus has to be maintained when it gets put in something with the kind of power it has. And like, same thing with this, like, it has a particular kind of texture. You can see this kind of big old cutout happening right here in the bass and the sounds in general. And that's a big part of the genre that this sound palette comes from. So to mix it all together in such a way that all their bits are all represented in a way that feel uniquely themselves together is the hard thing. And to do that, you have to know all the things you're mixing together well enough to know what it can survive with and without, and to add up to a thing that, benefits from having all of this combination. It's rare that you see it work out so well, and this worked nice. And it's a maturity of all of those things. So this older style, this neuro stuff, it doesn't feel like it's an old style, but it kind of is. It's a birth from a 90s genre, and it got its like sort of textural maturity in the early 2000s. It's kind of old, and also the dubstep itself is honestly 10 years old, or X more. So like this, we're seeing some maturity math happen, and it's coming up into stuff, and it sounds so good. I'm super into this. I'm also impressed with this track because typically when this kind of thing decides that it's going to do part 2, it adds something extra. And you notice that there's a bit of a lack here, right? Like, you can see this big hole in there, and then all of a sudden there's this, and then, normally what happens is that this is too loud, but this was not. This actually fit. It actually didn't overpower. It wasn't too much, and we still had everything else from the other stuff happening. People are all about putting in more leads, dual leads, harmonizing leads, solos, and whatnot, and plus that one really fun sound effect that comes up a bunch. Where is it? Or I guess not a bunch. Only a few times? This thing. Yeah, there's a lot of fun high-frequency junk in this track. Just in stuff. Those layers were fun. Oh, I wanted to mention about that previous track too, about one particularly cool layer in there, but I forgot. There's usually a lot of talk about these tracks, and I tend to forget some of the stuff. I hope I get the important things, though. The important things of this track are mostly that it's really nice. This is mostly just me being very impressed with how well all the disparate themes and elements are merged together, and how well it does not going super over the top. Like, it actually factually might be considered too loud, in total. And the fact that this merges well might just be because it's literally not possible for anything else to be louder than this. And that it sounds good to me because I was smart this session and managed to begin the whole thing with the volume turned pretty low, anticipating that I was going to be listening to some super bombs. I don't necessarily mean bombs in the sense that box offices fail. I mean bombs in terms of gonna blow my shit up. All right. Moving on to the next track. Good job, A440. We have Navlaan by Arkadius. Wow, this is a lot more delicate than the previous stuff, ain't it though? Okay, let's have a listen.
More life. Many.
Have a listen from the beginning.
Please, just stay away. No, please, don't come near me. Nothing good will come of it. Leave this place and leave me be, as I'd not see any harm befall you. Please, just leave me alone. Well, you're nicely hollowed, aren't you? Undead, eh? Well, you've come a long way. Are you tormented by memories? Burdened by guilt? Now the question, are you ready for more? If you are, then we ought to talk. So what say you to a spot of murder on my behalf? If you don't, I'll leave this place and take more lives. Many more. I couldn't give a fig either way, so what's your choice? Yes, let's get right to it, shall we? Yes, I knew I could count on you. You could kill a dozen like that and it wouldn't matter. I want you to kill someone of import. I want you to kill the girl in Majula, known as the Muse. They say that she is the last firekeeper, but they say a lot of things. That she's a gentle shepherd, lighting the way for you cursed fools. Nonsense. Having second thoughts. It's your choice. Now you're getting nervous. Oh, Jess.
That was something. Okay, so doing the work, right? There's a lot of I like Rhapsody. That's what they're called now. What they were more regularly known as was Rhapsody of Fire. Naming issues abound, but they're a metal band that does lots of really big epic stuff, right? Orchestras and stuff together. It's all super cool. They have a whole albums that are mainly like there's stories in them. Some of them are even narrated, like with Christopher Lee of all people, you'd think. And they a reason I'm bringing them up is because it's like, I like the direction you're going with this. I love everything about what you're trying to do with it, because it's work and it's hard, but it needs to be done because it's so cool when it works. When you line up all like you get the talking going, get it epic, and it comes down with things, but the things have to be worth coming down to, you know? And this first guy especially, like, oof. And oofs, A, because it took forever to get there. And, like, the longer you get there, the better it really needs to be. And B, the actual main sound for this whole thing sounds like what one of my patches would have sounded like if I turned the Vocodex off and all we heard was the modulator. That's what this liquidy kind of gurgly stuff sort of sounds like. It sounds like what it would have been a modulator for what would have been the main bass. This part, actually, like the second part of this stuff, sounded good. Like, it actually sounded pretty manageable, like a thing. And even this bit was kind of neat. I like the sound, how it sounds. This rhythmic, you gotta do something about this. This is not necessarily on time, but I know factually tempo-based LFO, you gotta bring it and make it sound like it's actually happening on a beat and not just around a beat. And saying that, like, I'm pointing this out because, like, I see your vision. I see the sensations and the feelings and textures and thoughts and desires in here, and I want them to be real too. I want them to be things, and you should definitely not ever stop trying to do that, because holy crap, this is still super cool. Like, this sort of thing, there needs to be more of this stuff. And like this is like, you know, the theater in making these things is the most difficult part, and frankly, you've got that locked. Like, the arrangement of when all the parts are, how long the parts are, the weight of when they have all the energy, even the mixing of this stuff is actually pretty cool. Like, the mixing is okay, given the content. It is mostly the content that is the issue here. Like, the sounds that are at the work, the specific voice and what they're talking about, that's the stuff that's making this a little cringy to me. But, like, what you want is awesome. The way you're doing it is fine. Like, the order of it all, like, how the way you think it should feel is right. You are correct. That's good. Do that. You probably also got a bit of things, like, you probably sure felt like something about this needed to not be like the way it is to make it better. But any new thing you do, just focus on those elements, I think, more. Like, I think a lot of work went into mixing these the vocals to have the kind of, like, presence they have, and it's they kind of do. It's just that, like, again, something this powerful has to have something worth being that powerful to say. And nothing has that amount of worth for this long to say that. Like, I'm putting out the Rhapsody stuff because if you go listen to the Christopher Lee stuff, he's got moments and all, but they're not very long. And if they are, it's because it's the entire track, and then the next whole track is free of it. You know what I mean? Other than that, kick ass all around. Kick more ass, please. Coming up next, we have Parallel Universe from CRSNT. Crescent. Wow, loud. Even the intro was loud. Even the bits aren't the drop of the bit. Oh man, this is so loud. Okay, let's get into this. Wee. All right, here we go. this was another track with a very well-tuned sense for the dramatic. And holy crap, this track also wins the loudness wars. That's for damn sure. To the point, though, where one particular minor flaw becomes very magnified during the main bits. And during, like, this section. All the sounds of which and the presence and the mixing and the hit of it is all very nice. It's all very good. The music is awesome. Except this leady bell thing does not at any point get cut by anything that's happening here. And the only problem with this is that there's a lot of negative space happening where all of the other stuff's getting cut intermittently and cut up and rhythmically and whatnot. And that's just not happening to the bells. And it becomes so obvious that it's not because this other stuff is. And also because, while this would have been a very quiet kind of background element, now it's not because of how loud it is. Because of how loud everything is. It's so loud. I don't understand how you got it to be so loud with a not very well-defined sub-presence. Like, it's there. The sounding and the volume switching must be very on point because this would normally be a tremendous mess. And I honestly don't know how to classify this, like, if it is or not. Like, I only think this isn't too loud because, again, I'm monitoring very quietly. But even how quietly I'm monitoring, I felt this, like, in my face. What I sort of thought would happen did happen, which is that the power in between the drop is as loud as the power in the drop, which makes the drops not feel very powerful when they happen. Which is a shame because they are very, very powerful. In the second one, especially, I dug the... But it's mostly because this is almost the first time we get any negative space at all on this track, which is what is required to kind of make loudness feel loud, to have gone all the way to nothing back up to something. Because the more time you spend at maximum something, the less that feels like it's a thing and more just where you are at the moment. Like having still though, like the feat, this is a feat. This is like the powerlifting of loudness mixing. You have lifted. You can lift, bro. And also you can write decent music and the arrangement is good and it's also very engaging and the sound palette is cool too. Like, it's very, very high level stuff. So good job. And good job everyone else for today. If you guys have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.